So it's a very special evening. Oh, take two. It's a very special evening at Lex Prez. We are welcoming two incredible women to Dunlap Auditorium for a presentation this evening. The first is board member Christian Worth and the new United Way Rockbridge director, Annabelle Hoover. First, I'd like to introduce you to Christian Worth. She has not only served on the UWR board since 2018, she also serves on the board of CARE Rockbridge. Since just before lockdown, she has been the advocate manager for our area for the Blue Ridge CASA, court-appointed special advocates, where she trains and supports local community volunteers appointed by the juvenile court to advocate on the behalf of children in foster care or under protective order. Prior to her family's move to Virginia in 2016, Christian had a private law practice focused on family issues and was also active with the local pro bono board and other bar associations. As the UWR director designate, Annabelle Hoover will join Christian and introduce herself to Lexington Presbyterian Church in her new role. Without further ado, Ms. Christian Worth. Is it?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, all right.
All right. Good evening. I am so excited to be here tonight. Oh, and even more excited I can take my mask off. Thank you all so much for welcoming me here this evening. This really came out of a lunch I had with one of your members, Pat, who's on the screen behind me, and sharing with her about some of the work that we're doing at the local United Way with what we call Alice. And I will explain Alice, I promise, in just a few minutes. But first, I wanted to tell you a little bit more about Annabelle Hoover. Annabelle is our executive director designate. Our current executive director, Patty Wood, will be retiring in December, which is pretty exciting for her, a loss for us. She's been with us for 9 years. We just celebrated that anniversary earlier this week. But Annabelle actually started out as a board member. And yeah, sure, come on up. I'll talk about you. Annabelle spent most of her life in the Pacific Northwest, primarily the Seattle, Washington area. She graduated from the University of Washington with a creative writing major and is now a lifelong Husky football fan, but no one will hold that against her. When her husband, Alan, took a position at W&L, the family made the cross-country trek from Bainbridge Island to Lexington. Annabelle spent much of her career in the running and outdoor industries, working to improve supply chain, operations, and customer service at Brooks Running and Outdoor Research. Annabelle is excited to put her corporate experience to work in the nonprofit world and contribute to the community in a meaningful way. And I know I speak for our whole board that we are so excited for her to take on the role of executive director. So her son has his final football game tonight. So she's just gonna say hi and then have to excuse herself. But I hope all of you all who are watching will get a chance to meet Annabelle in the coming months.
Thank you so much. We're really excited about the future at the United Way.
All right. So I think we can go to the slides. Perfect. Thank you. All right. I'm sure most of the folks here who are listening are familiar with United Way, but I just wanted to do a quick overview. The mission statement for United Way Worldwide is that we improve lives by mobilizing the caring power of communities around the world to advance the common good. And of course, working here in Rockbridge County, we have a very unique community, a very special community. So if we can go to the next slide, I just wanted to share what our local mission statement is, that we provide a leadership role in improving the quality of life of the people in the cities, towns, and unincorporated areas of Rockbridge County, Virginia, by assessing needs, raising and allocating funds for charitable purposes, and ensuring the appropriate use of those resources. Now, one of the reasons that I'm so excited to be here is that we as a board just underwent almost a 2-year-long process of revising our strategic plan and updating that. So as part of that process, we have sent out surveys to our donors, community stakeholders. We held a strategic planning retreat with members of the community. Some of you may have participated in that. And we took all of that feedback and what we were hearing from the community to help us shape our strategic plan for the next few years. And so one thing that we did, we added to our mission, I should have a slide, but I don't, but we added this to our mission, that these charitable purposes should ensure equity as to education, health, and financial well-being without regard to race, ethnicity, or gender, in furtherance of achieving an inclusive community in which there is dignity and equal opportunity for all. So if we could go to the next slide, please. Yeah. This is just an overview, a timeline of United Way. It started as the community chest back in 1949. And I will say that in the ensuing 70 years, we've raised over $3.9 million for the community. Thanks to generous donors. The only typo on this slide is that it says, the very last part says in 2020, we joined the Alice Coalition. That was actually in 2019. But again, I'm about to explain all. So one of the goals that we had in our strategic plan was to really identify what core values we wanted to hold close as we move forward with our new plans and going into the post-COVID future. And so I just wanted to point out that we hold our core values as accountability, collaboration, diversity, innovation, and integrity. You may be familiar with some of the organizations already that United Way supports. I suspect probably every one of you watching probably volunteers or supports or helps some of these organizations in some way. And this is just a few of them. Of course, we have a complete list available at our website. So now we come to Alice. I think a lot of people ask first, what is Alice? But I've decided that's not the right question. The question is, who is Alice? And I hope we'll be able to show a very short video next.
I am Alice. I'm a divorced mom of 2 boys, ages 10 and 7. They live with me full time. Due to the birth of our second child, daycare costs exceeded what my salary was, so I quit my job to become a stay-at-home mom. When the divorce occurred, that created an extreme hardship. I had to start putting a lot of bills on credit cards. It wasn't a path I wanted to go down, but I had no choice. So even though I have this full-time career, it's still a struggle. It's still hard to make ends meet. You can't keep a family of 3 afloat on my salary alone. If we don't discuss this and we don't talk about it and we don't raise the awareness, it's never going to change.
Alice is a project that started at a New Jersey United Way in 2009. And the initial goal was this particular United Way really wanted to understand at a data-driven level who were the folks who were in need in their community. And by looking at data, objective data, and analyzing it and identifying where the need is, you can get a snapshot of your community that's greater than just asking how many people live in poverty. And when we say live in poverty, for most of us, we think of the federal poverty guidelines. That's the official government definition of that. But as we've just seen in the video, and probably all of us at some point have been Alice, where you're working hard, but you can't make ends meet. And that's the community that we decided in 2019 that we'd like to shine a light on here in Rockbridge, Lexington, and Buena Vista. And I'll be doing just that in just a couple of slides. The ALICE project, as it's known now, I think it covers 23 states at this point. And so if you jot down the unitedforalice.org, you can go and find, if you're a data person, you will be lost for hours. You will not emerge from your computer for hours. But what I've brought with me tonight is the ALICE report, the ALICE study on Virginia, just Virginia. So what is ALICE? It's data is what it is. It's data and analysis at a community level that we as United Way can take and we can share in presentations like this. We can use this data to help shape priorities, to look at where the need is greatest for those folks who are hardworking but not quite getting by. All right, we can go to the next slide. All right, so why the name ALICE? ALICE stands for something. It's an acronym for Asset Limited, Income Constrained, Employed. So it means that it's a household where maybe they don't own a home, they don't have savings, so their household income falls below a level being able to provide for their basic needs, even though they might be above that federal poverty guideline. And finally, these are employed folks. These are people who are working hard. You only have so many hours in the week that you can work. So you can work as many hours as possible, but still not be able to pay your bills. And so when we talk about ALICE, we can say that ALICE might be your childcare worker. It might be the cashier at your supermarket or the gas attendant, your waitress, a home health aide, someone working in an office. And ALICE households typically have no savings. So one emergency, one crisis can have a cascade effect. And if we can connect these families in need with the resources to get the help they need to not have that effect start up, then we can keep them from falling into the poverty gap. I went and looked up what the current federal poverty guidelines are, just to give you some context. And for 2021, for all states except Hawaii and Alaska, for a household of one, the federal poverty line is $12,880. So for a family of four, that would be household income of $26,500. And as you may or may not be aware, a lot of programs will have criteria for eligibility that often, sometimes it's 150% of the federal poverty guideline level, 125%, it can vary. But as you'll see in a minute, we have so many households who are in need. Where does this data come from? We get that question a lot. I don't have time to go into it, and I'm probably not smart enough to explain all of it. But if you do go and look up the full study, you can see in the back, I mean, it has pages and pages of sources for the data, where it's coming from. Each state has an advisory committee. So Virginia has its own advisory committee looking over the data. And what these folks do is they come up with a survival budget for households, for different types of households. We'll talk more about that in a minute. And every 2 years, they update this data. So this 2020 report that I'm referring to is data from 2018. So we'll get another one in a few years. One of the interesting things about the report that I won't have time to go into tonight is that some of the analysis is really fascinating. For example, there's a section on, does access and proximity to a public library affect the income level of households? What is the effect of drug overdoses and the percent of overdoses in a particular county on that level as well? And then one that I think is very pertinent for all of us is internet access. If you want to apply for a job anymore, you've got to go online, or you've got to be able to read a QR code. You're not going to be handed a paper application necessarily to get through the process. So the ALICE report takes things a step further and really tries to drill down and look at where do we need to do the most work. All right. All right, so this next slide is just an overview of some of the data. This is for Lexington City proper. So what we know is that of the 1,984 households in Lexington, 17% live below the federal poverty line, or 337 households. The median household income in Lexington is $36,466, but compare that with the state average of $72,000. And that's why it's nice knowing that this data is localized, so that the cost of living that's calculated isn't what the cost of living would be up in or over in Nova, it's what it would be around here. So if we combine these households, then what we learn is that we have 53%, over half of our households here in the city of Lexington are either Alice or living in poverty. Eye-opening. So if we can go to the next one. Yes, Rockbridge County. You see the median household income rises significantly to over $54,000, but you still have a combined Alice and poverty households in the county of 43%, or 3,861 households out of almost 9,000 households. In Buena Vista, we have a median household income of $34,000, but we have 56% of the households in Buena Vista are either Alice or in poverty. So what we've done at United Way when we adopted Alice is what we're determined to do is to really just shine a light on this, bring awareness to the struggle of these families, and work and collaborate with the nonprofits, both those that we fund, but other nonprofits in our community, so that we can work together to see what we can do about these numbers and these statistics. I know some larger communities have Alice coalitions, so they come together and they come up with plans and work on things. And we're fortunate here, of course, to have so many great organizations to collaborate with. I wanted to just share in the full report, let's see, 1 second. There's there's some really great charts in here. I wish I had time for all of them, but there's one chart in particular that just talks a little bit about, if households can afford safe, affordable housing, what is the impact on Alice families? But then what is the impact on our community as a whole? Even if you have a home and you have a car and you have assets and you have savings, we should all be invested in helping all our families achieve these things as well and be self-sufficient, because it will lead to, for example, lower crime rates. It will mean less money is needed for homelessness services or social services. So, rising tide lifts all boats. So I think we can all, I hope, would all agree that working together to help this population will only help our community as a whole. Let's see. So I mentioned earlier that one of the things that Alice does is they come up with a survival budget. And so this slide is meant to illustrate a little bit about what this means. And it truly is survival. So if you can see that the expenses that they've included in here, they don't include savings. They don't include, a car payment. And of course, gas. I don't know if you all bought gas lately, but it's skyrocketing. And I'm sure you're familiar that transportation is one of the biggest challenges that we have in this area. It's just so very hard. But this particular budget would be for 2 adults and a family that basically needs childcare. And I'll be highlighting in a second that childcare is a dire need. It really comes down to childcare, food insecurity, and transportation, which in turn provides access to the services that you might need, medical care or taking your child to childcare. But in the full Alice report, they actually, you can look, it lists every single Virginia county, and you can look at the total households, the percent of Alice and in poverty. Again, if you're a data person, you can get lost for hours in that. we can go to the next one. If we can figure out how to show the video, what I wanted to do finally was to highlight two organizations that United Way is funding right now, where they're providing the types of services that Alice households need. And this first video is a video that was made for our annual meeting in February this year, which was fun because it was our first one by Zoom. And we asked every agency to provide a video about what they do and their mission. And I mean, they were all amazing. You can find them all on YouTube, but here's one for the Natural Bridge Food Pantry.
Good morning, I'm Linda Walker, and I guess it's been pretty close to 20 years I've been volunteering here at the food pantry.
Good morning, I'm Esther Pennington, and I've been volunteering here for several years, maybe up to 20.
Well, I was born and raised in Rockbridge County, and we were gone for 40 years with my husband in the Navy, and we moved back a little over 20 years ago, and I heard there was a food pantry here, and having grown up in Rockbridge County, I know these people. I either went to school with them, or they went to school with their children, or I know their children, and I saw that there was a need, and this was some way I could give back to the community.
Well, before I started volunteering at church, we were sending 2 representatives to be on the board. That's our officers meeting that meets once every quarter. So this lady retired and she drafted me. And that's how I kind of got started, going to the meetings, and then I started coming here and helping volunteer.
Anybody who comes to our food pantry and says, I need food, gets food. They may not get USDA, they won't get USDA, but we have donated food, or food that we've purchased locally with the donations we receive, that nobody goes away from here without food. If you say you need food, you get food.
Our pantry is open once a week. We're open the 1st, 2nd, and 4th Saturdays from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. And the 3rd Thursday of each month, we're open from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m.
So we don't want anybody to be hungry in Rockbridge County, because there's several food pantries in addition to ours. But we've been around for a while, and we fed a lot of people, kept a lot of kids from going hungry, and that gives me a lot of comfort in knowing that. Thank you, United Way, for including us in this. Every penny that you give to us will go back into the community and be put to good use. Thank you, Rockbridge.
Thank you, Rockbridge County and United Way. You're very generous with us, and we appreciate all you do.
That was nice.
Yeah, we really.
Where is that located? That place?
It's
It's in a little settlement of natural.
yeah. I have the address. I'm sorry, I don't know right offhand.
I know that little town,
Yeah.
but it's all-
Yeah. You have to know about it, and I want to give credit to our board member Sarah Senorino, who actually made this video, helped make it. Yeah, she's awesome. But this is an example of the small nonprofit that we support at United Way that's filling the gap, that's saying if you're hungry, we will not turn you away. And I don't know that a lot of people know about this outside of that community. In fact, I remember I said, well, how would I get the hours, or who do I call? And lady said, honey, you just, if you have a need, someone will tell you and you'll know where to go. You'll know how to find us.
Could you continue on that chapter? To me, that's the critical.
Yes, I will continue on that. So the next slide,
Oh, you have some more, I didn't know.
well, I'm sorry, no, you've got it. If you could try to get that video up, please.
Oh,
So,
that's about that, okay.
yeah, so this is just such a cute video. When I
Some
received,
of our
what?
congregation members go there.
well, all I know is when this video came in and oh my gosh, the dregs of January before the annual meeting, I started crying. I mean, it had been so long since I'd seen, saw faces and children, and but I thought it was just a really powerful video, and I included it because I think it highlights this need for childcare. And one of the let's see, did we skip a bit? Did we skip a slide? I'm so sorry. No? Oh, maybe I skipped it. In the Alice report, when it talks about childcare, I think some of the interesting things that were pointed out, which I'm sure these are not just true for Virginia, my guess is it's across the country, but they're talking about the challenges that the childcare industry is going to face. But one of the biggest one is that the vast majority of childcare workers are in the Alice population themselves. And the median wage, hourly wage in Virginia for a childcare worker is $10.68. So, right. And I mean, you can see the love and the care of the folks who work at this amazing childcare facility, and that we're so lucky to have in the community. And if only more children could take advantage of that. But I mean, I remember celebrating, I mean, we had a big celebration the last day we paid the last payment for childcare, and it's been a very long time. I won't confess how long. But I think that this allows us to see as an organization at United Way where we want to focus, obviously to continue to support the amazing nonprofits that we have a history with, but to really, I think, bring this information out into the community. So what I want to do finally, and then take some questions if there are any, is again, thank you all so much for your time, for your attention, for being interested in this topic, but to think about Alice in the work maybe that you already do with organizations you're involved with, and just to let those statistics follow you and be with you and remember them and be aware of them, that just you can work and work and work and still really be struggling. And I think there's a lot of potential in this community for us to collaborate, come together and do more. I think we already do a great job. We have such a caring community here. I know Lex Pres is a big part of that. So anyway, so thank you so much for having me. We're excited about where we're headed. I would say look for exciting announcements early next year for opportunities to become involved. And I'm happy to speak with anyone, or you can reach out to me.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you all very, very much.
Yeah, Christian,
Oh,
just on Zoom, I wanted to say thank you so much for your presentation, and I don't know, but to me,
One
it's
second,
been
Pat.
so- yeah, hi, to think the fact that we're talking about 50% of our population who are in this category, and I know just from my experience with trying to help with childcare during the pandemic for the children for whom we were tutoring, they qualified for the for the services to get scholarships and reduce childcare costs and all that, which was like $5 a day, but all these other families might be paying $35 a day. And when you look at that, and if you have 2 children and you have a job that's paying $10 an hour, you see so quickly how there is the need in the community. And it just seems to me this program where you can try to help meet the needs that so many people in our community are facing. I just think it's so important, and I appreciate your highlighting it today, and you're coming to make the presentation. And I don't have any answers, but certainly it highlights the issue, and I think we all need to think about it. So, thank you. Yeah.